fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo. And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you be with us, whether you're listening at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, if you're listening on one of our rebroadcast outlets, whether it be AM radio, FM radio, internet radio, whatever the case may be, glad you're tuning in. Or if you download this as a podcast, glad you're listening, whether you're at home, on the road, at work, wherever the case may be. We're just glad you're here with us. This week we'll be talking about a lot of different things that happened in the news, of course. The biggest news story that's going to be dominating the week, of course, is one of the more tragic stories of the week. And that is the tragic, I dare say, atrocity is the only word that I can think of when I think of the bombings that happened in London this week. Folks, in case you've been living under a rock and you know that these things don't come easy when we talk about it. Manchester, the site of a concert featuring American singer Ariana Grande, taste in music notwithstanding, folks. Not my cup of tea, but I know the kids love her. The goers of this concert were victimized by a homemade explosive device packed with nuts and bolts at around 10:30 after the concert was letting out, shortly after the concert was over. The result of a suicide bomber. And as we know by now, there is a body count that has grown to over 22 dead, including one 8-year-old girl, many children injured as well. The words aren't there. They're simply not there to talk about this. Frankly, I'm having a hard time talking about it on a political show. And because we're taping it so close to this happening, I feel like it's almost inappropriate to do. But because you're tuning in, and because this is a show about politics, presumably you're tuning in to hear some of the political ramifications of such a tragedy. Know that we're doing this with a heavy heart. And, you know, of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by this atrocity, as I called it earlier. And that's exactly what it is. It's going to be hard to talk about it. We're talking about the biggest terrorist bombing in the UK since the July 7th bombings in 2005, where 56 people were killed. Let's go through what we know, and then let's talk about some of the political fallout that's going to be coming from this. As we said before, thousands of young fans, maybe many of them young girls, and their families were filing out of the arena in Manchester. And, we know what happens. This explosion goes off. Panic ensues. Screaming ringing throughout the venue. Victims seeing smoke, hearing the large blast that shudders people. The performers were, of course, shuttled to safety. And the suspect died at the scene. Counterterrorism agencies immediately mounted their inquiry. And it led to a young person named... do we want to call him a person? I don't even know if we want to call him a person. Salman Abedi, A-B-E-D-I. If I screw up his name, I really don't care. Traced back to him. And ISIS has claimed responsibility for this. The suspect died at the scene, as we said earlier. Police confirmed Abedi's name earlier this week. He's a resident of Manchester, who was a person known to authorities to be watched for such activities. The person suspected, again, this atrocity, the police named him about 24 hours after the incident. And it is yet to be found out whether he was working alone or as part of a network. So we know that this guy was born in Manchester. His family has ties to Libya. Both of his mother and father were born in Libya, but appear to have immigrated to England, to London, before moving to Manchester. Grew up, went to school in Manchester, before working at a mosque in 2013. News has come out that Abedi, whatever the heck this guy's name is, the terrorist, the man who's probably burning in hell right now, and rightly so, that he had traveled to Libya, raising fears that he may have been trained there, and posing questions for security services as to whether he should have been tracked. Obviously, the threat levels in the UK right now are extremely high. 5,000 soldiers have been deployed in the streets amid fears that the bomber had accomplices. This is all courtesy of the UK's Telegraph, folks, so you can read the story there. They're still on edge there as to whether attacks can still happen. Investigators fear that he's part of a wider network of ISIS-inspired terrorists. Again, we said ISIS took responsibility on social media for this. There was some discussion on social media as to whether another Twitter account that has since been suspended had information on it naming Manchester Arena as the site of an imminent threat. And what we're seeing here, and I'm going through the news stories and different sites, are photos of just young people, a lot of them female, just killed, injured, hearts broken. It's ghastly. And again, I'm not trying to make light of this to talk politics about this just yet, but man, we have to address the elephant in the room here. This is yet another instance of a terrorist act committed by someone who, even with the slight bit of preliminary evidence that we've developed in this so far, and we're still very close to this attack time-wise as we're recording this, even now, we are finding the fingerprints of radical Islamic terrorism. And here we go again, folks. We might as well run through the litany of attacks. You may have seen this on social media. I know that James Woods has retweeted it. I know others have as well. Paris, January 2015. Paris again, November 2015. San Bernardino, December of 2015. Brussels, March of 2016. Orlando, June of 2016. Nice, July of 2016. Germany, July of 2016, multiple occasions. France again, July 2016. Ohio, November 2016. Berlin, December 2016. Istanbul, January 2017. London, March 22nd this year. St. Petersburg, April 3rd this year. Stockholm, April 7th this year. Dortmund, April 11th this year. Paris again, April 20th this year. And now Manchester, May 22nd, 2017. Can we say it yet? I don't know. Can we actually say that there is a problem with radical Islamic terrorism yet? Is it possible to utter the words and not be jumped upon? I mean, listen, the cycle is there, isn't it? Tragedy strikes, the world is grieving, and right as it should be. We then start to unite, and as we joke around sometimes, the flag overlays show up on Facebook, and the hashtag pray for wherever it happened comes up. And then we want to start talking turkey. We want to start talking about what actually happened, the root of the problem. Where is the root of the problem? And as soon as someone says Islam or radical Islamic terrorists, you branded the racist. You branded the bigot. You branded a insightful voice for hate. No, folks, that's not the case here. It's time to start calling it what it is. I know that President Trump has started doing it. He may not have done it on this trip to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia. We'll discuss that a little bit later on and the nuance of that. But it's time. It's time for all of us to start looking for accountability. I think that's what Donald Trump was trying to do. President Trump was trying to do in the Middle East when he went to Riyadh, and now he's traveled to Israel, to Palestine. He's going to Rome. It's time to hold people accountable. President Trump was right to say that the Middle East has to be part of the solution, and hopefully this, crystal ball thing in the middle of Riyadh to fight terrorism on social media is going to be a real thing and a good thing, and a real good thing. But it's time to name the assailant. Isn't it? I mean, once an organization like ISIS or anyone inspired by them kills children in the name of political motive. I mean, here I am on the show being very hesitant to talk about political motives and political fallout from this tragedy. But when you have the other side performing heinous atrocities against children, against parents who let their children do nothing else but go to a concert to be a child, to have fun, to make a memory, a good memory. And yet we can't name who they are because there are still elements on the left who will brand you a bigot for doing so. We get the speech that not all Muslims are terrorists. Correct. Absolutely right. We don't need to be reminded of that. But we do need to say that all these terrorists in all these places that we named were radicalized with you want to call it a perversion of the Islamic faith? You want to call it a perversion of Islam? You want to call it, twisted teachings and that it's not really the true faith? Okay. But this is happening far too often. I'm not seeing, and this is the example I see on social media all the time, I'm not seeing radicalized Amish terrorists. I'm not seeing radicalized Jewish terrorists. I'm not seeing radicalized Christian terrorists. And if there were, I'd call them out. Listen, I'm a cafeteria Catholic. It's not like I'm in church every Sunday in the same pew, reciting all the hymns and knowing everything line by line of what to do and what to say. That's not me. I would be calling out any organization, any group that uses religion as a cover to commit atrocities like killing children. That's the bottom line. And if we're not strong enough to do that, I mean, for goodness sakes, England, Great Britain, United Kingdom, what did they do to the Irish in history in trying to starve them out? And yet they're going to be brought to their knees because politically correct people do not want mentioning the religion or the radicalization of a religion? Come on now, people. Let's be adults about this. Identifying radicalized terror is not it's not an indictment of the entire religion. We see in our everyday lives that there is a possibility to coexist, but not people who are radicalized to the point where they are willing to give their lives in order to create a political message. That is no religion that I know of. What that is the perversion of religion being used to get these people to act in such an irrational manner, in such a malicious manner, and to commit these atrocities. It's absolute brainwashing. But there's got to be something to the political culture and the religious culture that lends itself for this to happen so often. We ran down the gamut from London to Paris to Germany to the United States, all points in between. We're seeing the same thing over and over again. Failure to recognize the connections and the pattern is a failure to accurately and seriously deal with the problem. When we can name the problem and deal with the problem and agree, all of us, of all religions, if we can finally agree that there's something going on here that needs to be addressed right now within this faith to prevent the radicalization